I stared at the lawyer's business card my daughter-in-law had just slid across my dining table. The edges were still crisp, like she'd been carrying it around waiting for the right moment. Elder care specialist, I read aloud. My voice came out steadier than I felt. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday dinner, the kind Margaret and I had hosted for 43 years before the cancer took her 8 months ago. But nothing felt simple anymore, especially not with Amber sitting across from me, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against my oak table. "Dad, we're just thinking about your future," my son Derek said, not quite meeting my eyes. He'd always been a good kid, smart, worked his way up to regional manager at the logistics company. But ever since he married Amber 3 years ago, I'd watched him shrink a little more each month. "My future," I repeated, setting the card down carefully. At 64, I didn't realize I needed specialists for that. Amber leaned forward, her voice dripping with concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Robert, you're living alone in this big house. You fell last month, remember? What if something serious happens? What if you can't manage the finances? We've been discussing it, and we think it's time to put some protective measures in place." The fall. I'd slipped on black ice, taking out the recycling, bumped my knee. Derek had rushed over like I'd had a heart attack, and suddenly Amber was there too, suggesting I might need help around the house. "Protective measures," I said slowly. "Power of attorney," Amber said, pulling out another document from her designer purse. "Just temporary, of course, until you're back on your feet. We'd handle the bills, make sure everything's taken care of. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing." I looked at the papers. They were already filled out. My name. Derek's name as POA. Even a sticky note showing where to sign. "This is a lot to process," I said. "Over pot roast." "We're not trying to ambush you," Derek said quickly, but his ears were red. He always got red ears when he was uncomfortable. "We just want to help." Margaret would have seen through this in a heartbeat. She'd never warmed up to Amber, though she'd been too kind to say it outright. But I'd caught her expression at the wedding, that tightness around her mouth that meant she was biting her tongue. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. Amber's smile didn't waver. "Planning is such a harsh word. We've been concerned. Your neighbor Mrs. Patterson mentioned you forgot to bring in your trash cans twice last month." "I was at a woodworking class," I said flatly. "Tuesday nights. I've been going for 6 years. See? That's exactly what we're worried about. Memory issues. Confusion about your schedule." Amber exchanged a meaningful look with Derek. "Robert, my mother went through this. It starts small, forgetting trash day. Then it's bills. Then medication. We're trying to get ahead of it before something terrible happens." Something twisted in my chest. Not fear, anger. The slow-burning kind that builds when you realize someone thinks you're too stupid to notice what they're doing. "Your mother had Alzheimer's," I said quietly. "I don't." "Not yet," Amber said. "But early intervention is key. That's what the specialists say." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was staring at his plate, pushing pot roast around like he used to do when he was 8 and didn't want to eat his vegetables. "Derek, look at me." He did, finally. There was shame there, buried under the anxiety. "Do you really think I can't manage my own life?" "Dad, he glanced at Amber. "We just don't want you to struggle. After Mom died, you seemed so lost." Lost. I'd been grieving. "There's a difference. I appreciate your concern," I said, and I meant it, at least for Derek's part. But I'm not ready to hand over my financial independence. I'm 64, not 94. I still work 3 days a week at the hardware store because I want to, not because I have to. I manage my own bills. I cook my own meals. I'm handling it. Are you, though? Amber's voice sharpened. "Because Derek told me about the credit card bill you forgot to pay last month." My jaw tightened. I was traveling. For Margaret's sister's funeral in Ohio. I paid it the day I got back. With a $15 late fee. Hardly a sign of mental decline. It's a pattern, Robert. And we can't just stand by and watch you make mistakes that could cost you everything. This house alone is worth, what, $450,000? And your retirement accounts, the life insurance payout from Margaret, you're sitting on close to $800,000 in assets. That's a lot of money for someone who's starting to slip. There it was. The real number she'd been building to. She'd done her homework. "I'm not starting to slip," I said. Each word came out like a stone, and my finances are none of your business. "They are when you're family," Amber countered. "When Derek stands to inherit. When we might have to take care of you someday. We need to know these assets are protected." Protected from what? From me? From predators? From scams? From poor decisions? "Dad, please." Derek finally jumped in. "This doesn't have to be adversarial. We're trying to help. Amber's been through this with her mother. She knows how fast things can deteriorate. And how convenient it was to have control of her mother's accounts, I'm sure." The air went cold. Amber's face froze. "Excuse me? I'm not signing anything tonight," I said, standing up. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice level. "I think you should both go." "Robert, don't be unreasonable." "I'm being perfectly reasonable. You came into my home with pre-filled legal documents trying to take control of my finances under the guise of concern. That's not help. That's something else entirely." Derek stood too, looking stricken. "Dad, we didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. I looked at my son, and I saw the boy I'd raised, and the man he'd become, and they weren't the same person anymore. I don't know if this was her idea or yours, or some twisted combination, but I'm not playing along. I'm sound of mind. I'm capable. And I'm not handing over power of attorney because I forgot trash day twice." "This isn't over," Amber said, snatching her papers off the table. "We're going to do what's necessary to protect you, whether you cooperate or not. There are legal options for when elderly people refuse to accept help. Get out of my house." Dad Derek reached for me. "Get out." They left. Amber first, her heels clicking angrily on my hardwood floors. Derek lingered in the doorway, looking like he wanted to say something, but ultimately following his wife to their car. I watched them drive away. Then I locked the door. My hands were still shaking. I poured myself 2 fingers of the scotch Margaret had bought me for our last anniversary and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the place where Amber's business card still lay. Elder care specialist. I picked up my phone and called my own lawyer. Tom Chen had handled our estate planning for 20 years. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Robert, everything okay?" "Tom, I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning, and I need you to tell me everything about elder financial abuse laws in this state." There was a pause. "What happened?" I told him. All of it. The power of attorney ambush. Amber's comments about my assets. The threats about legal options. "Jesus," Tom muttered when I finished. "Okay. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. And Robert, don't sign anything. Don't give them access to any accounts. And if they show up again, don't let them in without a witness present." "I won't." "Good man. We'll handle this." I hung up and sat in the quiet of my kitchen. The pot roast was getting cold on the stove. I'd made enough for 4, thinking maybe we'd have leftovers. Maybe Derek would take some home like he used to. I dumped it in the trash. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through the conversation, looking for signs I'd missed. How long had they been planning this? Had Derek been reporting back to Amber about my life, cataloging every small mistake as evidence of decline? The trash cans, the credit card bill. What else had they twisted into proof I was losing my grip? At 3 a.m., I got up and went through my files. Everything was in order. Bills paid, accounts balanced, health insurance current, car registration renewed. I wasn't slipping. I was grieving, yes. Lonely sometimes. But I was fine. I made a list of everything I could remember from the past month. Every conversation with Derek, every time Amber had called. Little things that hadn't seemed important suddenly took on new weight. 3 weeks ago, Amber had asked about my medication. What was I taking? Had I refilled my prescriptions on time? I'd thought she was being thoughtful. 2 weeks ago, Derek had offered to help with my taxes. "You don't want to deal with all that paperwork, do you, Dad?" I'd told him I'd been doing my own taxes for 40 years. He'd looked disappointed. Last week, Amber had suggested I might want to downsize. Rattling around in that big house all alone can't be good for your mental health, Robert. Maybe a nice condo? We could help you find something manageable. They'd been building a case, a narrative of decline that didn't exist. The next morning, I was at Tom's office at 8:45. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting. "Didn't sleep." "I did some research after we talked." He gestured to his computer screen. "The good news is they can't force power of attorney on you. You're competent. You'd have to sign voluntarily, or a court would have to declare you incapacitated, which requires medical evidence. And the bad news? The bad news is they can try. File for guardianship, make it expensive and emotionally draining, drag it out. And if they're willing to lie about your competency, it could get ugly. What do I do?" Tom leaned back in his chair. "We go on offense. We protect your assets now, before they can make a move. You revoke any old powers of attorney if they exist. We set up a trust with an independent trustee if needed. We get a letter from your doctor confirming your mental competency. We create a paper trail that shows you're actively managing your affairs and doing it well. How long will this take? The basics? We can have the revocation and medical evaluation done this week. The trust setup will take a bit longer. But Robert, I need to ask, what's your relationship with your son going to look like after this? I've been thinking about that all night. I don't know, I admitted, but I can't let them do this. If I give in now, even a little, it never stops. Margaret always said, you teach people how to treat you. I'm teaching Derek that I'm not a doormat, not even for him. Okay, Tom nodded. Let's get to work. By Friday, I had everything in place. A letter from my doctor stating I was in excellent mental and physical health for my age. A revocation of an old power of attorney I'd completely forgotten about one I'd signed when Derek was in college, meant to handle emergencies if something happened while Margaret and I were traveling. It should have been canceled years ago, but we'd never gotten around to it. That old POA was probably what Amber had been counting on. If I'd signed her new one without reading carefully, she'd have had dual control. Checkmate. Tom also helped me set up a consultation with a geriatric care manager, an independent professional who could assess my living situation and provide documentation that I was managing well on my own. It felt ridiculous, but Tom insisted we needed to overwhelm any potential court challenge with evidence. Think of it like this, Tom said. You're building a fortress. Every piece of paper, every professional assessment, every documented bill payment, it's another wall they have to break through, and they won't be able to. Derek called on Saturday. Dad, can we talk? About what? About Sunday. About what happened. Amber thinks maybe we came on too strong. Amber thinks that, does she? Silence. Then, she's worried about you. We both are. Derek, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. Whose idea was the power of attorney? More silence. It was mutual, he said finally. Bullshit. Dad, whose idea was it? Amber suggested it, but I agreed. I do worry about you. You're alone in that house. You don't have Mom to remind you about things. What if something happens? Then something happens. That's life. But I'm not signing over control of my finances to avoid hypothetical disasters. And I'm certainly not doing it because your wife has decided I'm too old to manage my own affairs. It's not like that. Then, what's it like? Explain it to me. He couldn't, or wouldn't. The conversation ended with him promising to give me some space and me promising nothing at all. I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor. Robert, there was a woman here asking questions about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? About your routine, whether you seemed confused, if you'd had any falls. She said she was conducting a wellness check for family services. Family services? I told her you were sharp as a tack and to mind her own business. But Robert, I thought you should know. She had a clipboard and everything. Looked official. I called Tom immediately. They're building a case, he said grimly. Gathering statements from neighbors. They're going to try for guardianship. Can they do that? They can try. It won't succeed. Not with our documentation. But they can make your life hell in the process. Robert, I think it's time to have a come-to, Jesus meeting with your son. Make it clear that if they pursue this, you'll fight back. And you'll win. But the relationship will be destroyed in the process. I didn't want that. Despite everything, Derek was still my son. But I also couldn't live under siege, waiting for the next attack on my autonomy. I invited Derek to lunch. Just him, at a diner halfway between our houses, neutral ground. He looked tired when he arrived. Thinner than I remembered. "Thanks for meeting me," I said. "Of course, Dad." We ordered coffee. Neither of us touched it. "Someone came to interview my neighbors about my competency," I said without preamble. I assumed that was Amber's doing. Derek's face went pale. "I didn't know she was going to do that." "But you knew she was planning something." He didn't deny it. "She's convinced you're not safe, that you need help whether you want to admit it or not. She keeps showing me articles about elderly people who lose everything to scams, who fall and can't get up, who let their houses fall apart because they can't maintain them anymore. Do I seem like that person to you? Really?" He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in months. "No," he admitted quietly. "You seem like Dad, like you've always been." "Then why are you going along with this?" "Because she's my wife. Because she says she knows the warning signs and I don't. Because I'm scared of losing you the way we lost Mom, and I don't trust myself to see it coming." His voice cracked. "I miss her so much, Dad. And I can't lose you too." There it was. The real fear underneath all of Amber's manipulation. Derek was terrified, and Amber had weaponized that terror for her own purposes. "Son, I miss her too. Every single day. But giving Amber control of my life isn't going to keep me alive. It's just going to make me a prisoner in my own life. She says she's trying to protect our inheritance. That you might get scammed or make bad investments, or... Is that what this is really about? The money? No, I don't think so. I don't know anymore." He put his head in his hands. Everything got so confusing. Amber's mother lost everything before she died. The facility took it all. And Amber's terrified the same thing will happen to you, and there won't be anything left. And she wants to make sure she gets her hands on it first. Derek flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Derek, I've set up a trust. Everything is protected and planned for. When I die, you'll inherit according to the will your mother and I made together. But while I'm alive, I control my own assets. That's non-negotiable. Amber won't like that. I don't care what Amber likes. I care about you. You're my son, and I love you. But I will not be bullied into giving up my autonomy. If she files for guardianship, I'll fight it, and I'll win. But our relationship won't survive it. You need to choose. Choose between your wife's paranoia and your father's reality. I'm not incompetent. I'm not declining. I'm a 64-year-old man living his life. If Amber can't accept that, then I can't have you both in my life. It's too dangerous." He sat there for a long time, coffee getting cold, staring at his hands. "I need to think," he said finally. "Okay. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." We parted in the parking lot. I watched him drive away and wondered if that would be the last real conversation we'd ever have. 3 days later, Amber called me directly. "We need to talk," she said. "I don't think we do. Robert, I'm trying to save your relationship with your son. He's torn up about this. You're putting him in an impossible position." "No, you're putting him in an impossible position. I'm just refusing to be your victim." "Victim?" Her laugh was sharp. "You're being paranoid. We're trying to help you. By interviewing my neighbors behind my back? By trying to build a case for incompetency? That's help? That's due diligence. If you were thinking clearly, you'd understand that. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Clear enough to know that you saw a vulnerable widower with assets and decided to make your move. How much of your mother's money did you manage to get before she died, Amber?" The silence was arctic. "Fuck you," she said finally. "Stay away from me. Stay away from my neighbors, and tell Derek he's welcome in my life, but you're not. Not anymore." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time with adrenaline, not fear. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Then Tom called. "They filed," he said. My heart sank. "Guardianship?" "Yep. Petition for emergency guardianship claiming you're a danger to yourself. They've got a statement from some doctor I've never heard of saying you exhibit signs of cognitive decline." "What doctor?" "I've only seen Dr. Ramirez, and he gave me a clean bill of health. Some gerontologist named Feldman. Ever heard of him? Never. He claims he did a remote assessment based on information provided by concerned family members. It's bullshit, but we have to respond. Hearings in 2 weeks. What do I need to do? Show up healthy, coherent, and well documented. Bring your medical records. Bring your financial records. Hell, bring your grocery receipts if you've got them. We're going to bury them in evidence that you're fine. I spent those 2 weeks gathering everything. Bills I'd paid, correspondence I'd handled, records of my volunteer work at the community center, photos from my woodworking class showing the intricate chess set I'd been making. My instructor wrote a letter stating I was one of his most skilled and focused students. Dr. Ramirez was furious when I told him about Dr. Feldman's assessment. That's not even legal, he sputtered. You can't diagnose someone you've never examined. I'll write a rebuttal. I'll testify if needed. This is ridiculous. Even Mrs. Patterson wrote a statement. Bless her. Robert Hendricks is sharp, capable, and a better neighbor than most people half his age. Anyone who says otherwise is either lying or stupid. The day of the hearing arrived. I wore my best suit, the one I'd worn to Margaret's funeral. It felt appropriate somehow. Another ending. Derek was there with Amber. He wouldn't look at me. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Martinez. She looked tired and skeptical as she reviewed the petition. Mr. Hendricks, do you understand why we're here today? Yes, Your Honor. My daughter-in-law believes I'm incompetent to manage my own affairs. I strongly disagree. I've reviewed the petition and the responding documents. That's quite a lot of evidence you've compiled, Mr. Hendricks. I'm thorough, Your Honor. She almost smiled. So I see. Let's start with Dr. Feldman's assessment. Counselor, can you explain how your expert conducted an evaluation without ever meeting the alleged incapacitated person? Amber's lawyer, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit, stood up. Dr. Feldman conducted a comprehensive review based on detailed reports from family members, neighbor observations, and documented incidents of concerning behavior, such as failure to maintain the property, missed bill payments, confusion about daily schedules, inappropriate financial decisions. Your Honor, Tom stood. We have documentation refuting every single one of those claims. Property inspection reports showing the home in excellent condition. Bank statements showing every bill paid on time, with one exception 8 months ago during a family emergency, corrected immediately. Letters from the community center where Mr. Hendricks volunteers every Tuesday, the same day his daughter-in-law claims he forgot was his woodworking class. Judge Martinez turned to me. Mr. Hendricks, why do you think your family filed this petition? I'd been dreading this question, but I'd promised myself I'd tell the truth. Your Honor, I believe my daughter-in-law is concerned about my financial assets and wants control of them. My son has been manipulated into thinking this is about my welfare, but the timing 8 months after my wife's death, when I received a substantial life insurance payout, suggests otherwise. That's a serious accusation. I don't make it lightly, but they attempted to get me to sign power of attorney documents under false pretenses. When I refused, they began interviewing neighbors and building a case for incompetency. I'm 64 years old, Your Honor. I work part-time because I enjoy it. I maintain my home. I manage my finances. I'm grieving my wife, but I'm not impaired. She looked at Derek. Mr. Hendricks, the younger, do you want to respond? Derek stood slowly. He looked miserable. I just want my dad to be safe, he said quietly. Is he unsafe now? Derek opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Amber, then back at the judge. I don't know anymore, he whispered. Judge Martinez sighed. I've reviewed Dr. Ramirez's evaluation. I've reviewed Mr. Hendricks's financial records, his property inspection, and multiple character witnesses. I've also noted that Dr. Feldman's remote assessment is not just questionable, but potentially unethical. Unless petitioners have additional evidence beyond speculation and hearsay, I'm inclined to dismiss this petition. Your Honor, Amber's lawyer stood again. My clients are willing to accept a supervised evaluation by a court-appointed neutral psychiatrist if the court has concerns about Dr. Feldman's methodology. Your clients can accept whatever they want, Judge Martinez said dryly. But Mr. Hendricks doesn't have to submit to evaluation by anyone unless I find probable cause to believe he's impaired. And I don't. Petition dismissed. The gavel came down. I felt my knees go weak with relief. However, Judge Martinez continued, looking directly at Amber and Derek. I want to be very clear. If this court sees another frivolous guardianship petition targeting Mr. Hendricks, I will consider sanctions against the petitioners and their counsel. Adult children do not get to commandeer their parents' lives because they're worried about their inheritance. Am I understood? Yes, Your Honor, Amber's lawyer said stiffly. We filed out. In the hallway, Derek caught my arm. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't want this. Then why did you let it happen? Because I'm weak. Because I wanted to believe she was right, that she was protecting you, that I was being a good son. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Amber was watching us, her face tight with fury. You need to make a choice, I told Derek. And you need to make it now, because I meant what I said. I can't have both of you in my life. It's not safe. He looked at his wife, then back at me. I choose you, he said. I should have chosen you from the beginning. Amber's expression went nuclear. Are you kidding me right now? After everything I've done for you? After I tried to protect your future? You tried to steal from my father, Derek said, and his voice was stronger than I'd heard it in years. I didn't want to see it, but it's true. This was never about his safety. It was about control, about money, and I'm done. If you walk away from me now, then I walk away. I should have done it months ago. He turned back to me. Can we start over, please? I looked at my son. He was crying. So was I. Yeah, I said. We can start over. Amber left without another word. Derek stayed. That night, we sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this whole nightmare had started, and we talked, really talked, about Margaret, about grief, about how he'd lost himself somewhere in his marriage and didn't know how to find his way back. I'm going to file for divorce, he said. It's going to be ugly. She's not going to go quietly. I know, but I'll help you. Whatever you need. I don't deserve that. You're my son. That doesn't come with conditions. He stayed late. We finished the bottle of scotch, and when he left, he hugged me tight, like he used to when he was a kid. I love you, Dad. I love you too. 3 months later, Derek moved into my guest room while his divorce was being finalized. Amber had indeed made it ugly, trying to claim he'd abandoned her, trying to get alimony, trying everything her lawyers could think of. But Derek stood firm. We fell into a routine. He cooked dinner on Tuesdays. I cooked on Thursdays. We ordered pizza on Saturdays and watched old movies. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was good. One evening, Derek found me in the garage, working on the chess set. That's beautiful, he said, running his hand over the carved wooden pieces. It's for you. For when you get your own place again. Something to remember that you're stronger than you think. Dad, I almost destroyed everything. How can you just forgive that? Because holding on to it would destroy us both. And your mother would never forgive me if I let that happen. He picked up the king piece, examining the details. What happened with Amber taught me something. About boundaries. About standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. Good. Don't forget that lesson. It might be the most expensive one you ever learn. It was worth it, he said quietly. Having you back was worth it. The divorce finalized in October. Derek moved into a small apartment across town. We still had dinner every week. He started dating again, carefully this time. When he brought his girlfriend Sarah to meet me, I watched how they were together, equal, respectful. She made him laugh. She had her own career, her own money. She didn't ask me a single question about my assets. I like her, I told Derek later. Yeah? Yeah. She sees you, not what you can give her. Just you. I learned from the best, he said, looking at a photo of Margaret on my mantel. Mom always saw people clearly. I should have trusted her instincts about Amber. Live and learn. On what would have been Margaret's 63rd birthday, Derek and I went to her grave together. We brought flowers. We told her stories. And I told her about Derek standing up in that courtroom, choosing what was right over what was easy. She'd be proud of you, I said to Derek. She'd be proud of both of us. You didn't let them win, Dad. You taught me you can be kind and still be strong. You can love someone and still have boundaries. That's everything. I put my arm around my son's shoulders. We stood there in the quiet cemetery, and for the first time in over a year, I felt something like peace. The story could have ended differently. I could have signed those papers, given in to the pressure, let fear rule my choices. They might have taken everything, my autonomy, my dignity, my money, but I didn't, and that made all the difference. Sometimes protecting yourself feels like selfishness. Sometimes loving someone means telling them no. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. I'm 65 now, still living in my house, still volunteering on Tuesdays, still working at the hardware store because I like talking to people and staying busy. My finances are secure, managed by me, protected by a good lawyer and ironclad documentation. Derek's doing well. He and Sarah got engaged last month. When they asked me to officiate the wedding, I cried. Happy tears this time. I think about Amber sometimes. Wonder if she's found another target. Hope not. Hope maybe she learned something too, though I doubt it. Mostly I think about Margaret and how she always knew the right thing to do, even when it was hard. I try to channel that now. That clarity, that strength wrapped in kindness. I survived. We survived. And that's worth more than any amount of money they could have taken. The chess set sits on Derek's mantle now, right next to his engagement photos. He told me it reminds him every day that the most important games aren't about winning. They're about knowing which pieces to protect and which moves lead you home. I taught him that. And Margaret, she taught me.